On the day where the odds were against them, Manchester United produced their best performance of the season. It ended 2-2 at Anfield, and we are going to definitely unpack all that went down over the weekend. Welcome to Sports Pizza. My name is Edwin Onyeboli. I'm good. I hope you are. We have a lot in store for you today. Of course, David is with me in the building. Before I bring David on board, let me tell you that in 2025, as we promised, we're giving you nothing but the best from the world of sports. And we have one or two additions to the show. So, hey, don't change the channel. Sit back, fasten your seatbelt, because it's going to be a fantastic ride. Let's do the short break. When we return, there's more in store, and we're going to unveil on the show for you. Welcome back to the Action Sports Pizza. Edwin and David in the building. David, welcome. How you doing?
Edwin, pleasure to be here as always. 2025 is off to a flyer for me. I hope you're not one of those people who sets new resolutions and before 2 weeks is already done and dusted. It's out of the book. I can tell you safely that my new resolutions are still on par.
Can you share one of those resolutions with our viewers? Just one.
I cannot.
Okay, so I'm not privy to his resolution, but I can tell you for a fact that this year, David has resolved that come what may, is giving his undivided attention to Arsenal. This could be their year. Who knows? 2025, the year for Arsenal. And it takes us straight to the Premier League, David. Manchester United at Anfield, two of the biggest rivals in English football history. And for United, nobody gave them a chance. It ended 2-2. They scored at Anfield for the first time in over 555 minutes of football action. David, were you surprised by United's performance?
Well, I was not surprised because I expected Amorim. You know, he's talked a big game since he came into the club. He's talked about what he wants to do. And unfortunately for him, the talk has been outside the field. On the field, we have not actually seen those talk translate to the performances required. But I just knew there was conviction. I could differentiate from what Ten Hag was. Ten Hag was all talk and no action, but you could see a little bit of substance to what Amorim was talking about. If I contrast these results, to the same exact picture last season with Ten Hag, it was 0-0, and it was one of the worst matches of football I've ever seen in a long time. So Amorim came into this game, similar tactics, tried to stifle Liverpool, but there was extra bite from this United team. There was more aggression. I liked what I saw from United in that game.
So the question is, where has this level of performance been? And why hasn't been a theme with Manchester United? If you can produce this against Liverpool, why didn't you produce it against Newcastle, against Bournemouth, against Wolves? Why wait for the big occasions?
I think for Amorim, I think he will also be asking that question. I think he has tried to make his players to raise their levels to this standard, because this is exactly the level he wants for this United team. But it seems a lot of these players cannot deliver this performance. Then I think I'll place a little bit of the blame on him, because the way he wants to play, it's clear that Casemiro, Eriksen, those guys cannot offer. You saw the youthful exuberance of Kobe Mainu and also Manuel Ugarte. You saw what they could offer. You could see it clearly, and I think for that reason, maybe Bruno had probably one of his better games, even though the jury is still out on what his future is with United. But I think generally, a lot of these players are not going to be in the future of United under Amorim. All
right, talking about the future of Manchester United, it is imperative that Ineos back him, and it has to start in January.
Oh, absolutely. I think for me, I still feel a lot of pity for Amorim and what the Ineos situation they put him into. They allowed Ten Hag to create a mess. Then they left him to simmer over that mess, and then chased him at the time they felt it was appropriate, and then brought in somebody to now start cleaning the mess. So from the moment Amorim came in, it was about putting out fires, cleaning messes all over the place. Each time he cleans one, it seems like another one appears. So I think now Ineos have to back their man. They've given him the job, and they know they cannot deny that they don't know what the scale of the task is. And all this man needs is what they have to provide to him. And starting from January, no excuses must be made.
And is there a future for Marcus Rashford at Manchester United?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. The body language from Amorim, there was a whole storm over the course of last week over how the whole issue, it talked about he was not in training because of the illness. Rashford's PR agency came out and said he was in training. Just back and forth. So it feels like the manager is clearly not interested in all the backlash and all the drama that Rashford comes with. He wants to move on with it.
All right, let's look at the game from Liverpool's perspective. Will you put it down to arrogance, or maybe Manchester United and in particular Ruben Amorim studied Liverpool's weaknesses, exploited it, and could have gotten away with all 3 points if Maguire put on the scoring boat?
I don't think it's down to arrogance. I think, Slot has always, talked about it in games, even games where they won. I remember they won a game in the Champions League against Girona. It was 1-0, and he said, this performance I like, even though the result is not the best. And then they won the following game 3-0, and he was like, I don't like this performance, even though the result was. So he talks about the fact that they are capable of producing performances as drab as this, as not up to their standard, and that's what he keeps crying about. We need to maintain our levels, and it shows that this Liverpool team, over the course of they are good from everything. This performances have shown in different games. We saw them against Fulham, saw them against Newcastle. It seems like they have this level where they just play and they are not up to their usual standard, and I think that's the problem for Slot.
Talking about standards, a player came under heavy criticism from fans, from pundits, from rivals. Trent Alexander-Arnold. David, it was poor on the day. For all of his attacking qualities, there are question marks about his defensive abilities and capabilities in big occasions or whatnot. Was he affected by the transfer rumors linking him with Real Madrid, or you thought that this was a classic Trent against speedy, faster, better wingers?
I think, unfortunately for me, I'm a fan of Trent Alexander. He's my favorite footballer. I make bold to say. But I think for me, there's a lot of blame. We know who Trent Alexander is generally. One, he was not a fullback right from the academy. He was a midfielder. Klopp put him as fullback. And I think his defensive lapses are there to see. Fortunately for me, this season he has tried to step it up a bit. I think he's part of the best defense in the Premier League. So he's not being a major suspect this season. But in that game, he started the game quite alright. I think he fizzled out. I think generally he was not also helped by Curtis Jones on the right flank. It didn't help him much. But I think for me, the transfer rumor, I think it has a big role to play. For Salah has taken it as a motivation to give his best this season. For Van Dijk, as the captain, he has decided to just shut it out. Before Trent, at the age where he is and the law of Madrid, and he's one of his best friends. Jude Bellingham was also there calling him. So all of that has to factor in because of his age. He's 26. I mean, he has his whole future ahead of him. I think it played more impact in his performances.
Still on Trent, David. I felt Ancelotti should have helped him. Now, he was double teamed by Dalot, who had perhaps his best game this season, and Bruno Fernandes, who needed to make a statement following his red card last time out. And I thought that seeing how the game went, how it unfolded from the touchline, you should have either brought in a replacement or you instruct Curtis Jones to track back and help him out. He didn't do any of that, and unfortunately for Trent, no help. It was even the best fullbacks or best defenders,
need help.
If you are double teamed,
you
can't do it alone. And I thought Ancelotti could have done better in that regard.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for Slot, he did not do enough. I think for somebody like Trent, who is obvious defensive weaknesses, and then you allowed him to be exposed that much. I think in that game, Curtis Jones did not offer any protection. He left him isolated, and one-on-one Trent is difficult for him. Now having two-on-one, I think it was one of the weaknesses. And Man United saw it, and credit to them, they exploited it to their full advantage.
We'll get back to Liverpool soon, but from Real Madrid's perspective, do you think Real Madrid will have cold feet, having seen that performance from Trent?
No, I don't think so. I think for me, it's the Galactico signing they want. It's everything they want in And also, considering the fact they have a Valverde who is a workhorse, they have Lucas Vazquez playing right back also, and he's not showing because he has help as much as he can get, even though sometimes he can be exposed. But when you have Valverde, you have as much cover as you can. So they think what he offers going forward, I think they think is trade-off with his defensive, they think they can manage with it.
All right, back to Liverpool. Should the fans be worried, seeing that they struggled sometimes against Manchester United? It was easy for United to play through their press. It was easy for United to create chances. The number of crosses United put in the box. It was anti-Slot that we've seen this season. Should fans be worried? I
think not yet. They should just exercise a little bit more caution. I think what will determine is maybe the next couple of games, if you see something similar, it feels like the wheels are beginning to come up. But if they can still make, because they have a sizable gap at this point, I think that's the cushion which they built from earlier in the season, which is still giving them as much advantage as they can get. But if the next 2-3 games, deliver something as close to this as expected, then they can begin to worry.
Talking about worry, Arsenal managed a draw against Brighton. We'll get to the penalty incident, but overall, I felt Mikel Arteta was risk averse. He did push for the winner. That was what I got from that game after 90 minutes. I felt that it was okay with one goal, and it felt like, okay, we have the defensive quality, the shape, the ability to see it out.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, it's just based on what the squad that he was presented with was available. You look at before that game, Odegaard was probably 50% fit because of the illness he had. Havertz could not even travel. He told the doctors expressly, I cannot make this trip.
Just hold on, David. Hold on.
Okay.
I think it's a penalty. Now, it's a clash of head, or it looked like it was a clash of head. One player was hot, the other wasn't. The argument Arsenal fans have made is that, hey, it was a coming of heads, clash of heads, Saliba got the ball. Yes, it's true, but that's half truth. Now, Saliba got the ball, but his contact with the ball did not change the direction of the ball. Also, he rammed into João Pedro, not the other way around, and it wasn't a case of both players coming together. And crucially, João Pedro was running towards the direction of the ball because Saliba's touch or contact with the ball did not change the direction of the ball. For that reason, it's advantage attacker, and a foul and a penalty.
You make a good case, but I think there are other arguments that. So you look at there were other angles of that incident that showed that the contact Saliba made was not significant enough for the reaction that João Pedro made. Then you look at
how do we judge
then you look at
significance of force? How do we determine that? It's a clash of heads.
But there's that, but I feel it didn't look like it didn't look like a penalty.
Okay. But you've not made any convincing counter argument to it. But that's by the way. Once again, we must question Arsenal's mentality with regards to picking up points where they don't play at their best.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this was the case, and I felt like, hey, if you want to put pressure on Liverpool, you need to win your games. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we've seen it in the last 2 years where Arsenal have challenged for the Premier League title. These games like this where win and you close the gap, win and they fail to on multiple occasions. I think it's the undoing of this Arteta team. Is it a mentality problem? Is it quality in the squad? Is it the players? A lot of these factors come into. I think Arteta has a share of the blame as well, because if these kind of situations keep repeating and you cannot sack your players of this level, you cannot set your team up to get the result. And it's Brighton. Brighton have not been in the best of places this season. They've been on a very terrible, losing streak. They've not actually gotten points, and then you go to their stadium and you cannot get the result. I think you put a vintage City in that situation, and you know what the result you're going to get. Put a Liverpool, even though they've also been, butlers in some situations, but at least games like this, do what needs to be done, and then move on from that.
All right, talking about butlers, Chelsea, maybe not butlers, but hey, last couple of weeks the manager has said we are not in the title race. The players have said it. The fans have run with that anthem. Right now, they are not in the title race, and it looks like they are in the battle for the top 4 for a side who, a couple of weeks ago, were about 3 or 4 points behind Liverpool. So now fighting for a place in the top 4. It tells you that, yes, this Chelsea side are not ready to challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Maresca was saying it. At that point, because of the results they were getting, it looked like, he was trying to be disingenuous. But when you look at the performances, Chelsea have played too many open games, in their run for you to consider your title challengers. If you allow your opponents to have opportunities where they can take you to the cleaners in games, even if you go on winning that game, it seems like a pattern where you can eventually get found out. And we saw it in the games where they've actually now gone on to draw points, to lose. Those kind of points. They have a good attack, a solid attack, but defensively, that defense is not a defense that can get you. The entire setup, the goalkeepers, the defenders as well, are not a setup that can actually compete in the title race, and that's why the real results are beginning to come out.
All right, Manchester City, it's back-to-back wins for them in the English Premier League. Are they back?
Absolutely not. You look at it, it sounds like I'm being very harsh, but you look at the teams they've beaten, they are teams that we expected to. But even in those victories, there were situations where I feel this is the City we've seen, the frailties, the fragilities we've seen. Against Leicester, if Jamie Vardy had put on his proper shooting boots, it would not have been a 2-0 scoreline. You look at the game also they won against West Ham. Lopetegui and his boys, I don't know what they were on about in that game. They waited till they were 4-0 down before they actually responded and told the game to City. The quality they had was enough to give City first. So I don't think City are bad because those fragilities still exist.
Finally, from the English Premier League, Tottenham 1, Newcastle 2. They are in their worst home run since 2008. 2 wins in 14 games for Spurs. I don't know how much time Postecoglou has, but there was a defining moment in that game. The handball that led to Newcastle's equalizer. Was that a handball? Should that goal have stood?
I mean, it was a handball for me. I don't know what PGM were on and about. You know, since Audwell became the head of PGM, it seems like he came in to actually, you know, quieten all the noise, make it clear. But it seems like there's more confusion. There's muddled up the whole thing. They keep making some of these decisions, and you wonder, you know, we are in VAR era. Fine, you can say the referee made a mistake, he doesn't see. But when VAR go on and look at it multiple times and still arrive at those kind of decisions, you just sometimes...
But the interpretation was that his hand was in a silhouette position. He wasn't moving away from his body, and he didn't move towards the ball. And for that reason, technically, it wasn't a handball.
But you need to look at the impact it had on, you know, the result of that game. The impact it had on what went on after that. I mean, Newcastle went on to, you know, get a result from that. So I think a lot of these things need to be put into good question.
If I had an opportunity to ask Awood, I would ask him if that action had taken place on the goal line. Would you have would you have waved it up, or would you have blown a penalty? The Premier League and controversy, some have said it is deliberate, others have said it is coincidental, but we can all argue that it adds to the brand that is the Premier League. Let's go on a short break. When we return, there's more on the show. And we are back. Welcome back to the second half of the show. Sports Pizza, David and Edwin still in the building. Remember to follow us on social media. The handles are showing on your screen. David, quick one from the Italian Serie A. Napoli defeated Fiorentina. Yeah, if there's someone you don't want to be in this position, it is Antonio Conte. 1 game per week, he's the expert.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the squad that he has is not the very best of squad, but with a game a week is enough for him to do the damage he needs to do. Inter Milan and Atalanta have a real fight on their hands this season.
I get a sneaky feeling that Inter might edge it based on the depth
of their squad
and quality. Now, it's one thing to have depth. It's another thing to have quality. They have both in abundance, and I think that is the cushion effect that gives them that platform to go and win the Italian Serie A. But hey, it must be said that it's an enthralling Serie A season. The boys are gradually separating from the men. Lazio lost to Roma.
I called it.
We also saw Fiorentina again lose to Napoli. In Spain, we have a new log leader, Real Madrid. They did it the hard way in Real Madrid fashion. Once again, Vinicius Junior under the spotlight. Is it taking this too far, or you think the ref or the authorities need to protect him? Where do you stand?
I mean, when we come out and say, oh, footballers need to, you know, be able to control their temperament, it feels like they will say, we are not a professional footballer, you don't know what it. But I mean, we deal with some similar situations in our everyday life, and you feel, you may say it's not the same thing, but you have to deal with situations. When fans, when players, when they know that they can get under your skin with things like this, they make you an easy target. I mean, when trying to be the champion of a cause, it's quite good, but when you are now making it look like it's you against the world, I feel it's a difficult situation you put yourself in. I think the way he reacts and the way he sets himself up in those situations, these back-to-back red cards at the same stadium in consecutive seasons, I mean, it seems like he knows what to expect. The fans from the beginning of the game started booing him. I mean, you're not the first player to be booed, so you need to deal with it. And I think Vinicius himself, I don't think the officials need to protect. I don't think the FA needs to protect. I think he needs to do more to control himself. Just play the football you are there to play. You can make your case champion, of course, in different ways, but play the football you are paid to play on the field.
Do you think Madrid is handling this situation well? Because Carlo Ancelotti, after the game, sided with his player. Do you think that also fuels that desire to be the villain?
Yeah, I think Madrid they are not dealing with it the best way. And I don't envy them because they're in a situation where their best player, their most prized asset, if they make it look like they are supporting, you know, the officials supporting against their own player, it might affect his temperament. I remember the issue of Luis Suarez and Evra, the whole racism issue. The fact that it seems like Liverpool were supporting him, even with in the face of overwhelming evidence, and it did not make sense. I think clubs need to come to a situation where you are our player, you are our asset, quite all right, but we are the one paying. So like we can actually set down rules and regulations, set down lead principles. There's a standard we want you to keep. You don't paint our image in a bad light. I think Madrid need to get to that level with Vinicius.